पंजाब नेशनल बैंक, भरोसे का प्रतीक।
This is a very different type of an event, something that you might not have seen before. So the concept is as follows. What we're trying to do is have Mr. Mahalingam, the entrepreneurial side of the discussion, and Mr. Shyam, the executive side of the discussion, come forward with their thoughts and their perspectives about how life has been different to both of them. You might be aware that both of them have been students of NIT Trichy, and then they went on to graduate from IIM Calcutta, and they have with them an experience that is unprecedented. So after about 1 hour of discussion between them, which is going to be moderated by our very own Manikandan sir, we will have question and answers open to you.
Thank you, Karthik. Good evening to all. So as Karthik said, this is a very interesting concept. So they have managed to bring two friends who have been together as part of their engineering education and as part of their MBA education, and both of them went and took two different kind of roads, to say. Like Mr. Mahalingam went and took charge of his family business, which at that point in time was a small car dealership, and over the period of time he has grown it and also diversified into many other businesses. And similarly, Mr. Shyam Vembar has made his mark in the corporate world as part of strategy and operations role in many big organizations like Unilever and Monsanto and across geographies. And currently he is heading the agribusiness of Mahindra. So, sir, first, welcome to the event. I think welcome to your alma mater, though it's we are here part temporarily, but yeah, I think as part of your alma mater also, we should welcome you. So welcome, and thank you, thank you, thank you. Sure. And as you can see, the way they have dressed, not so it's going to be an informal session. So don't get fooled by my attire. So it's going to be an informal session. We'll have it as a more a conversational style, and keeping in line with the title of the event, what I would like both of you is to take us partly through the journey that you have been through, so that we learn something out of it. And more critically, I would like to spend some time on the experience that you had at the critical crossroads in those journeys, when you made choices that kind of took you to different kind of roads and diverged from one another, so that we can learn from each other. So that's how I look. We are planning this particular conversation, right? I think can we start by first talking about your experience at say NIT and then IIM Calcutta, like part of your.
It's a very funny feeling, because Shyam and I were not only batchmates, so to say, we were classmates in chemical engineering, project partners for our chemical engineering project. Went to IIM Calcutta together. Shyam went ahead because I got through on the waiting list. Shyam qualified directly. So to put it in perspective, we were together in the same institution for almost 7 years. I think we were on campus. We were a first 4.5-year batch. We passed out. We were the first 4-year batch, but we're not allowed to pass out in 4 years. And then 2 years in Calcutta. And as they say, as a student, Shyam and I've really known each other, and there's a lot in common with us, including answering questions on a project without actually knowing what we were talking about. Including, IMC is a very quanty kind of place, where you're supposed to be engineering graduates are supposed to do very, very well. But Shyam and I were exceptional engineers. We found statistics almost incomprehensible in IIM Calcutta. And to share with you, for all of you who have not done so well academically, just sharing a truth with you, both of us flunked stats 2, and we had to take a re-exam to pass. We have so much in common, I can tell you, Shyam and I. And the joke we often say is Shyam and I were very, very shy kind of guys. After REC, which was virtually no co-education, we went to IMC, where we had girls from Delhi and Bombay and stuff like that. We were kind of zapped, the country bumpkin lost in the razzmatazz of the big city kind of feeling we had. And the only time me and Shyam got to spend 3 hours together with only women in the room that day was the re-exam of the statistics to paper. So, so Shyam's not very amused, but so we have actually gone through a lot together. So in that sense, Shyam and I were very similar, but as personalities, again, I think we were not so similar. So the paths we took obviously were different, and Shyam, actually for a brief period after IMC also, he was working with TTK and I had a job with Metal Box in Calcutta. We were together for almost 7-8 months in Calcutta. So we were with each other for almost 8 years. Okay. For me, personally, my side of the story is I had taken up a corporate job immediately after campus, but family circumstances forced me to get back within 6 months of that. As Professor Manikandan says, we were a well-known name in Chennai and in maybe South India as a car dealership, but I hated it when after an MBA I went back, after an IIM MBA I went back to a pre-owned car dealership, and it's, you know, the image one has of work after an IIM is you have a cushy AC office with a secretary and all kind of assistants, and all you do is plan strategy for the next $1 billion deal. So that is, you know, you walk out of campus, especially if you don't have work experience, that's the impression you carry when you pass out IIM, and you think the world owes you a lot, actually. That's the feeling IIM graduates used to have. I'm sure many of you do have that feeling, but you know, be ready. It's not that way necessarily all the time. So it was a rude shock for me coming back to my family business, so to say. It was a there used to be an office and a table, no air conditioning, one fan, hot. I got back sometime in February, March of 2008, and Chennai summer had started. There was water stored in a ever-silver container with a glass hanging with a chain linked to it, kind of environment. Not definitely what I had envisaged when I was doing IIM, but you know, circumstances, and in hindsight, we could call it vision, etc. It was none of that. It was a circumstance. And see, the only thing that, to a great extent, REC then, now NIT now, and IIM had taught us was to maximize every opportunity, basically. You know, that's what, and you know, we never planned in 5 years ahead. For our exams, we planned maybe 4 hours before, not even 4 days before or a few weeks before. So my mother kept joking, it's a generation, when I got into business, which does prepare for an exam, not only the night before the exam or the day of the exam, on the way to the exam. Me and Shyam used to carry our books to the exam hall virtually. And you know, so we were just in time, much ahead, much before the Japanese were. So in that sense, I had got into the business, and I saw an opportunity because though the infrastructure was not great, the business was not the most ideally suited one for a freshly minted IIM Calcutta MBA. You know, one in impression himself was unrealistic then. We thought we were cat's whiskers. So we had, but you know, I saw an opportunity there because we had fair amount of goodwill and fair amount of large customer base we had for our business there. And again, see, I will say this again during our discussion today. A lot of things in life, in my case at least, and Shyam would agree, or I would have a different view on it, is we were discussing this on the flight to Trichy. It's about as bright as you are, as smart as you are, it's about being at the right place at the right time. A lot of life is just about that, actually. Fortunately for me, financial services, consumer financing in India was just about to take off in the late 80s in India, and Citibank had entered that and were looking for third-party distributors. And as fortune had it, we were one of them. They were looking for partners to distribute car loans for them. And the fortunate bit was it was happening then. The deliberate bit maybe was not so deliberate, was a lot of my IIM classmates were working in Citibank those days, so I had a connect with them already. So they found it easy to deal with somebody so-called who could speak their language, you know. All these foreign bankers speak in a particular way, dress in a particular way. You know, joke was, if you had to be a foreign banker in the 80s in India, you made sure you didn't have a mustache, you're clean shaven and wore a tie to work every day, kind of stuff, you know. So they could speak their language, I could speak their language, and we started a partnership with Citibank in '88. And from then on, our diversification started. If somebody were to say it was a deliberate diversification, that I planned it, I'd be lying. It wasn't that. The opportunity happened, we grabbed it, and even today, we are one of the largest third-party distributors of financial products in the country. We are a loan brokerage today representing many of the biggest banks in the country with a customer-centric proposition. We represent the customer with multiple finance institutions. You can name them HDFC, ICICI. You can name the institution, Citibank, Standard Chartered. We run a loan brokerage, so to say. We are creating an online presence on it. So what started in 1988 by sheer coincidence that Citibank desired to enter the consumer banking industry in India, and they wanted to enter Chennai, and my friends were working with Citibank, and I was in this business. So many things fell into place at the same time. Basically, it was that. Now we can call it vision. I saw a business 25 years ahead. No nonsense. We just saw it month by month, quarter by quarter, target by target, basically. Now, we reacted well, responded well, and reacted to that. What happened alongside was they had a home loan distribution business, which gave me a view into real estate, because they wanted a real estate advisory model with that. They wanted customers who wanted a home loan to take property also, property advice also. So we started that, and today, thanks to that, we have a real large real estate business across South. So everything has been, in my case, a series of opportunities which were God sent or presented themselves, which we have managed to seize and take it big. So now, I'm not saying this is true for many entrepreneurs. In my case, it is true, but the good thing about it is every venture we have taken on has worked well because we've been able to put together a fantastic team of people. So, okay, maybe we can pat ourselves on the back a little for that, but again, if you have to survive in business, you have to find ways to survive, and one good way to survive is surround yourself with smart people. That was, see, most things in business are not rocket science, okay, but you know, at least in the brick and mortar business, maybe online, maybe it's a little bit of rocket science because I don't understand that, but in the brick and mortar business, we are in hardcore, not brick, steel and mortar, cars, real estate, services. So it's a lot about having the right kind of people, not necessarily the brightest people. Our hiring also, even today, I don't insist. Sometimes I hire graduates. I have an auto rickshaw driver who joined me and was a senior manager with me today. All that I saw in him was hunger. The hunger to perform and attitude. We hire only for attitude. Skill can be developed for us. It's not as if we don't hire smart MBAs, we do. We have people from XLI working with us, people from IIMs working with us, and we have ex-foreign bankers working with us. But that's one part of the business. The important thing for us has been we've been lucky with people. So put it in perspective, for me, our journey has been one about being at the right place, right time, seizing the opportunities, scaling it, and using every opportunity to build a new business around it. That's largely been my story, you know, starting with 88 to 2014. I got into business in 88 January, and with this January, jokingly last year, I told my family and my guys who have been with me long, in 2013, January 8th is when I got into business, that they should present with me with a HMT watch. Because in those days, the done thing when you complete 25 years of services, they used to present you with a HMT watch or a Titan watch or whatever. So so over the last 25, 26 years, it's a journey which has been terrific because I think Shyam will agree on one thing. We have all been fortunate to be part of the India growth story. All the sectors we are in, whether it's consumer finance, financial services, real estate, automobiles, all these businesses, to give you a small sense of perspective, when I got into business in 88, there were 3 brands of cars. And Maruti was only a 3-year-old brand then. There was an Ambassador, Hindustan Motors, there was a Fiat from Premier Padmini from Fiat. It used to be called Premier Automobiles then, and then Maruti. There are brands which also existed like Standard, etc., which were not big. By 96, that had multiplied many times over. Today, I think each brand has a model which has more than 3 variants. So times have changed dramatically. We have ridden that wave, so to say. Similarly, in financial services, the Citibank is the only player today. Today, you have anybody or somebody, NBFCs, etc., in consumer finance. Similarly, real estate, real estate, you would know what was worth 1 rupee in 1988 must be worth, I think, 10,000 rupees in today's context. So we've really actually ridden the boom. So we've ridden the boom, so to say. We were there in the right place, right time. Maybe we were not stupid to do the wrong things, is what I would say. I'm not saying we're exceptionally bright, but yes, we were lucky to be there, but we seized the opportunity and maybe could have used the opportunity better, but we didn't waste the opportunity by doing the wrong things in a big way. That broadly is my story. I think I'll give you more anecdotes as we go along.
Well, thanks, Mali, for that talk, because it saves me the bother of talking about my early days in NIT and in IIM along with Mali. He's described it pretty much accurately. Well, what can I say? I mean, those were great times, and as I was telling Vinayak on the drive back here, coming back And Shibani was inquiring as well when I walked in here, how does it feel to be back? And I said, well, I had no words to say that because it's always good to be back home. NIT and IIM Calcutta, but probably more so NIT because this campus is where we spent almost 5 years of our lives. It's always wonderful to be back here. It also feels a bit odd for me to be sitting here on stage, pretending to give gyan because as Mali so accurately pointed out, I was an absolute genius in college. I was, at the top of my class. I aced every exam, etc. It seems I almost feel like an imposter sitting here trying to tell you about what I've done in the last 25 years. So let me tell you a little bit about my my journey over the last 25 years. It's very different from what Mali has done, and obviously the first thing I need to tell you is that if you want to make money, you be an entrepreneur, work for yourself. You won't end up making too much money in corporate life, I guess. But okay, so let me begin at the beginning. I guess we all, given our educational background and the fact that you get into a place like the IIM, regardless of which campus you go to, you write a very competitive exam, and as I think Mali described it as a feeling that you're a cat's whiskers, being the top 2 percentile of the population of the test-taking universe, and you get into a place like this and you come out with a certain self-image, right? So, you know what I was doing 2 weeks after I passed out of campus? Can anyone take a guess? I'm sorry? No, I didn't have time to do that, unfortunately. I mean, so I'm out. I've passed out of IIM Cal. I think I'm the cat's whiskers. I get into corporate life. 2 weeks later, what am I doing? On one day, any answers? Anything? Thinking of quitting? No, not thinking of quitting.
Selling soaps?
Selling soaps? I wish I was selling soaps. By God, I wish I was selling soaps. I was not selling soaps. That was my problem. Okay, any other guesses? It's quite funny, actually. No, I wish I was. If I tell you what I was actually doing 2 weeks after I passed out of campus from IIM Calcutta, I mean, doing documentation work would seem very nice indeed. Sleeping? No, not by a long shot. Okay, so here's what I was doing. I was working with this company called TTK, right? And there's this area in Calcutta called Shonagachi. Are you familiar with what is that place? It's a red light area. What was I doing in a red light area? On work? Okay. TTK had at that time launched its brand of condoms called Kohinoor. I, a graduate of NIT Trichy, as Mali rightly pointed out at the top of my class, and a graduate from IIM Calcutta, as Mali very kindly said at the top of my class, was going around in Sonagachi selling condoms to the people who worked there. It was a very humbling experience, as you can imagine. And I don't know if you remember Mali, but I came back home one day. I mean, I used to visit him in his metal box chambery out in Calcutta, and he had a good laugh at my expense. But that's how I began my corporate career, and worked in TTK, then went on to sell paints and worked with Unilever for many years in sales and marketing. Sold all kinds of stuff, and that's when I graduated to selling soaps and shampoos and toothpaste, and then I graduated to, I started making ad films. I was a brand manager. Have you heard? Are you familiar with Pears soap? Yeah, I was a brand manager for Pears soap in India for about 2 or 3 years. I don't know what brand of deodorants you guys use, but Axe, you heard of Axe? I worked on the launch of Axe deodorants in India. I was the one who brought it in here. So these are the 2 brands that I worked in when I was in Unilever. And so life was all very nice and very exciting. I had moved on significantly from the days when I was wandering around in red light districts, looking very shady and selling condoms to prostitutes. But so here's the thing. Some things happen to you. Sometimes you make a choice. And Mal is absolutely right. I've been blessed so often in my career by things that have happened without my making anything happen, be in the right place at the right time. It's also sometimes you take a call. So you won't believe this, but I'm telling you the truth that I started getting bored of doing branding and marketing in Unilever. I'm telling you the truth. I sort of used to wonder. I was making all these ad films. I was working with the best ad filmmakers. All this very nice. But somewhere along the line, I started to get bored. And then I had this opportunity to join a company called Monsanto. I don't know how familiar you are with the company. It's the world's largest agri-products company. It's genetically modified technology, you know, GMO, BT cotton, BT brinjal, all the controversial stuff that happens. It's all about dealing with farmers, as far away as you can get from dealing with soaps and detergents and Pear soap and Axe and stuff like that. And what they were looking for, the brief that I had when I went to meet them was, you're working for Unilever, it's one of the most driven companies in India. Can you come and become the head of sales for us and professionalize our sales organization? You know, I thought a little bit about it and it seemed exciting. And my colleagues in Levers thought I was an idiot. FMCG is a glamorous industry, no question about it. It is also an industry which has got a great amount of scope. FMCG doesn't mean you remain FMCG, because when you're a consumer facing business, you can do various kinds of things. You can go into finance, you can go into television, you can go into communication, you can do a whole lot of things. But agri can get constricted. So this was in 1999, and I said, you know what, this looks interesting. Let me try and see if I can make a difference. Because quite frankly, Unilever being the organization that it is, there are so many bright people working there. You really need to be exceptionally lucky or exceptionally exceptional to make a difference in any significant way. But here was an opportunity in Monsanto where I could probably go and try and do something different. I accepted that, and it was a wonderful ride for the 11 years that I was there. I did various roles. I joined them as head of sales. Then I became the head of marketing for India. Then I went to Indonesia, as the country head, and that was probably a bit of a stroke of luck, because I don't know how many of you remember this. You're probably kids at that time, but in 2002 October there was a huge bomb attack. This was the height of the Taliban, the height of Osama bin Laden. The 9/11 thing had happened just about a year ago, and Indonesia at that time was one of the epicenters of global Islamic terrorism, and not too many expatriates were willing to go and work in Indonesia. And so it was by chance that this came around to me, and I said, okay, I'll go there. That was a lucky break. So I was there for 3 years, and I moved to the corporate office in St. Louis. I worked there as head of international marketing and a couple of other roles. And came back to India and headed the South Asia business for the vegetable seeds division of Monsanto. And then I moved to Mahindra & Mahindra now, where I head one of the agribusiness verticals. It's almost like being in a startup once again. So working for all these big multinational companies, coming to a business where there's practically nothing happening right now. It's my job to start off these businesses, through organic or inorganic growth and see what best we can do out of it. So that's sort of a summarized version of what I've been up to over the last 25 years. It's one thing I can tell you. You can learn or you can unlearn a lot of stuff that you do in your engineering or your undergraduate courses, and you come to IIM Trichy, IIM Calcutta, IIM Bangalore, you learn your stuff. But much more important than the theory that you learn is probably two things. One is the friends that you make and the networks that you develop. And the other thing that has helped me at least go through my career is not so much the hard stuff that I've learned, but the fact that being around such smart and bright people through my engineering days and through my IIM days. I was being polite, Mali. So it helps you to think in a certain way. You appreciate. I think you grow as an individual and you grow as a professional just by being around the smart people that you have with you. And these are the two biggest values that I carried out of me when I finished my college days. And these experiences and these benefits have stayed with me throughout life. I'm sure during the question answer sessions and the moderated discussion, I can probably try and throw more light on and give you some anecdotal evidence of what life will be like in the corporate world. But as far as the introductory remarks go, I think I've sort of ended what I had to say.
Shyam, I just want to add one thing. I didn't realize we had one more thing in common. While Shyam sold Kohinoor and Sonagachi, my summer internship in Bangalore was on the Kohinoor and Fiesta brands of LRC. And just to give you a small example of what life teaches you, I just thought I'd share this anecdote with you. My summer project was on ad effectiveness of the Kohinoor campaign, basically. So here was a shy boy from Chennai who had no idea what life was about, had gone to IIM for a year, and I go to that agency was called Mabuzal then. MEA. He used to handle the quantum account of TTK those days, and I was given, those days there was no mobile phones, no laptops, nothing. So we used to carry print, cyclo-style actually, questionnaires, take them to various people and do market research. It's not one of these hep things which you do when you go key a button, press a button and come back. And we had to do focus groups and we had to do market survey. So I landed up in IIM Bangalore. It was absolutely hilarious because I was staying in the IIM Bangalore hostel. We landed up to do a market survey and we were asked to do various strata of society. So there was an office attendant. So the shy boy that I was, I didn't tell him what the product was. For 10 minutes I kept asking him questions. Okay. So at the end of which, he answered all my questions, which sounded perfectly logical to the question. Answers were perfectly logical to the questions I asked. So I realized at the end of it that maybe I'm not getting anywhere because he said, sir, when did TTK launch Nextiles? I said, that's wonderful now. I said, I had so wonderfully communicated what a condom was because I was so shy to talk about it. He was too shy to ask. So you begin to realize that you have to deal with all kinds of people and make them understand what you're saying without being inhibited. You know, it's really funny. So it teach all these experiences, as Shyam says, no, whatever you see and absorb, more than for us, not that we enjoyed the classes so much, but outside class there's a lot of learning, as he said.
And it's probably not much of, I don't know if it's a coincidence or it's a hand of fate, but just think about it. The only two guys in a room full of girls in a Stats 2 exam end up doing something with condoms, which is like, you know, maybe there's a moral in it somewhere.
Thank you. So I just want to pick up on one particular issue about the choice that you made from moving from, say, Unilever to Monsanto, or from later from Monsanto to Mahindra, or in your case, sir, from choosing, you said it is because of family reasons you had to choose a family business, but still it must have been a very tough decision. From what I understand from my seniors or professors, Metal Box at that time is one of the top companies which comes to IIMs at that point in time. The reason I'm asking this question is that I see most of the students today, our students now, are at that critical juncture. So they are now graduating and they are now choosing to go which company do I work for, or some of them are contemplating on starting their own business. So what should be the parameters to make that decision? Of course, each and every individual have their own choice, but based on your experience, your personal experience, and you have seen several people like them who have made their choice over their career. So what would you like to tell them about that particular choice of where do you work and how do you make the choice?
Okay, so I sort of spoke a little bit about I was getting bored in Unilever, doing this, which is quite surprising for many people. So let me step back a little bit, and if I were to translate this, it's not for me to give advice. It's very easy to talk about, do this and do that. So I can only say that I had by the time gathered a certain set of experiences in the FMCG world with various companies. And I think my decision to quit the world of FMCG marketing and go into Monsanto was driven by two emotions or two push factors. One is, as I'd mentioned earlier, I wanted to be in an environment where I can make a difference, a real difference. And whatever I discussed during my interactions with the Monsanto guys, I felt I could really make a difference because they were really desperately looking for somebody who would come and do that. The ag world, the world of agricultural, the ag industry tends to be somewhat more chaotic. It's less systemic, it's less systematic, and so certain capabilities I'd built up over my years of working in the more organized FMCG industry would probably be magnified in Monsanto, both to the benefit of the company and also to my own personal career growth. That was the first thing. The second thing, which is even more subtle, it's a slightly more subtle thing, is I think one of the most important things that one should look at, whether you're an entrepreneur or a professional, is how well do you know yourself. Okay, you'll hear a lot of people telling you how to succeed in your career. You got to be focused, you got to have a vision for your career, you got to know how to do this, that, and the other. But I've seen people who succeed in what they do, regardless of what field they work in, is how well they know themselves. What is important for you? What moves you the most in life? If you're able to answer these questions for yourself, I think you'll make the right decisions as you go along, and that certainly was the case in my experience. The reason I made that switch from Unilever to Monsanto is precisely because I knew that at some fundamental level, I wasn't very happy doing what I was doing, and it would probably be much more fulfilling for me as a professional and as a person to go into the ag space, get out of the straitjacket, and try and see if I could do something. And that's the reason probably why it paid off. It was not because I was getting a higher salary. It was not because I was getting a national role. It's not because I knew I would go abroad and work in some other part of the world in 3 years' time. That's not why it was. It was only because of this. And if we make these choices for the wrong reasons, I think we'll end up being disappointed.
extending Shyam's logic on knowing yourself, I think I'll extend that a little and say, in my case, my biggest high or what I used to enjoy doing most wherever I was, whether in school or REC or NIT or IIM, was I was really full of friends all my life. Okay, so I really enjoyed being with friends, and I always believed that though not in a mercenary sense, it would be possible to grow businesses based on relationships, so to say. So whatever I did in my life was based on that premise. I'm saying this in hindsight, but what actually happened was I got into businesses apart from my family business. Whatever I started, as I told you earlier, was thanks to my friends from IIM or thanks from REC. So I used, so to say, so-called my relationships or my friends' network to expand my business. And even today, whether Shyam and I are in touch after so many years, I have a lot of friends have across whom today are more than willing to do business with me or start new business with me because my relationships with them are very strong. So the defining, as Shyam said, if you take stock of yourself, not in a balance sheet kind of sense, but as look at yourself and say, what I'm most comfortable doing, what am I good at, and what will make me feel very satisfied. I'm very happy being with people. I'm very happy dealing with friends. I'm very happy being in a crowd. I like making new friends. I like meeting new people. So I built my businesses not deliberately, but because I had this quality in me, all my businesses have been built on the basis. Similarly, each one of you, I'm sure, has a particular quality. One of you could be a great geek. One of you could be a great people's person. One of you could be an extremely smart and tough manager. So all of us have different strengths to us. And believe me, all this actually gets channelized a lot by your head and by your heart. I believe that while your head is very important, if you follow your heart, automatically things will fall into place. See, while it's very, very so-called global advice at the beginning of your career, you will realize the value of it if you step aside a little and say, what do I like doing? What do I enjoy doing? In my spare time, not at work necessarily. What is my personality like? Then you will be able to, as Shyam said, if you're very good with people, I would never go necessarily into a high-tech kind of job, because while it might be good and it might be a big brand or it might sell well, even then, even if you do get in, you should get into a role which suits your personality. So I would go with the thought of finding out broadly. It's impossible. Personalities also evolve. But broadly, what do I enjoy doing? If today also, after so many years, I can say I was always great with friends long back, I'm very good with friends now. But that's what's built my business also. There's one aspect which I feel very comfortable. As I said, I might not have said this 30 years back, but if somebody had asked me, I would have said one thing. I'd love to do something where I have a lot of people around me and I can make friends. Is the way I would have looked at it 30 years. I would have said this. My pet line was, I'll be a good manager because I'll get people to do things. So that is my take on this. On my movement from Metal Box to this, 2 corrections. I shut Metal Box before I left it. It wasn't roaring then in 1988. So second thing being, again, the way I saw it at that point of time was, see, I had given myself 2-3 years of working before starting a business. So 8 months into the so-called opportunity presented itself and I grabbed it. So I was always inclined to become self-employed. So that is one strong reason which I use this as an opportunity. See, I even on the way I was telling Shyam, one of the reasons both of us didn't go abroad, we were so hung up on Indian culture. Those days you didn't have this kind of connectivity, and where could you watch a cricket match live, or where could you watch a Rajinikanth movie first day first show? These were driving factors, seriously. So we stayed back. Shyam will validate. So the culture was a big draw for us. See, both of the chemical engineering, he had a great admission from the US. I had a good admission from the US. We deliberately chose to stay back. So we took important decisions following a heart, I would say. Wouldn't you agree, Shyam?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, we could have ended up in the US and pursued more than half our batch in REC at that time did that. But for instance, speaking about myself, I was very clear. My first preference was getting into an IIM. Okay, look, here's the thing. I knew I would be a terrible engineer. I was very clear about that. I wouldn't have enjoyed doing it. I would have been bad at it. I would have sucked, honestly speaking. So what do? IIM. If I didn't get into IIM, I would have gone abroad. I was pretty clear. That's the head speaking. Okay, I got into IIM. Mali got into IIM. We had a great time there, and things worked out. In fact, I went and lived abroad. I was in the US as well, but I chose to come back for whatever reasons. Family, friends, culture, etc. So if you're reasonably smart about how we make our choices, I think they work out in the end. That's what's the sum and bonum of what I've learned in the last 25 years.
I just want to expand. Attending interviews also teaches you a lot in life. Shyam and I attended 2 interviews which defined our future forever. One was an interview with SPIC. They had come to campus. Me and Shyam were shortlisted to go to Chennai. Okay, so we went to Chennai. There was a written test. Out of 100, the total 200 marks in the pre-qualifier. So 160 for general aptitude, 40 for technical, and another 100 for GD. So, and there were some 50 people writing, and they were taking 21 jobs. Both me and Shyam should have got the job based on our rankings. I was 11th and he was 8th or something like that. But the guy interviewing me saw that and said, your mark sheet looks rather curious. I said, why? You've scored close to 145. That adds up to some 80 in the GD, 58 in the aptitude, and 7 in the technical out of 200. So 7 out of 40. So he said, let's talk technical. No, I said, the nightmare begun. So he said, let me understand from you. If I were to ask you, how do you store sulfuric acid, what containers, what material would you choose? Creative genius I was, I can tell you. I said, zinc containers. He said, you know what will happen? I said, zinc sulfate. I didn't bat an eyelid. So then he said, give me some more examples. I said, plastic containers. He fell off the chair. He said, I did defend myself. I said, no, polymer technology is evolving. He said, boss, I'll never give you this job now. You go find something else. Then another interview happened. Hindustan Lever happened. Me and Shyam were there. Same story. 200 marks, 80 marks in GD, aptitude. There's a guy called Kazi from Hindustan Lever HR those days. He had a French beard and menacing fellow, big fellow, some 6 foot by 4 foot kind of guy, 6 feet by 4 feet kind of guy. He was looking down on you, and you enter the room alone, huge table. You see in those movies, he'll sit at one end of the table, you sit at the other end of the table, and there's a flipboard behind you, and you ask you to. He said, no, so what project? Me and Shyam did the same project, okay? So we discussed before going in what we should say, the answers, because we had to say the same thing. Because we read the project after we did it. So the project was a manufacture of diphenyl methane from benzene. This is hilarious. Shyam will tell you the rest of the story. It's a really hilarious story. So he said, now for wall thickness of the heat exchanger, what are the variables and what is the graph? He said, standard thing, you draw an x-axis, you draw an y-axis, and when in doubt, draw a rectangular hyperbola. Did this. Okay. That guy said, put the pen down now. Next 45 minutes, I decided I'll never go to the side of engineering again. He said, what do you guys take? You do your engineering, you want to run away from engineering, you want to become managers. So events like this, at least influenced my decision never to look at engineering after that, I can tell you.
So here's a, I don't think I mentioned this to you, but the world turns in very strange ways. A few years later after I joined Unilever, and Mr. Kazi used to work in the Hindustan Lever Research Center in Andheri, which is where now the Unilever head office is. And so I actually went on campus recruitment with him on the same panel.
The story of
I never ever told him I'd seen him before.
The story of a project didn't end there. I should tell you the story of a project. You know, we were passed out in 85. I had a friend whose brother passed out in 83 from AC Tech. So we wanted projects. So we went and shopped for projects in Chennai. So we got one project. We got 2. Actually gave one to our friend called Verghese, and me and Shyam took one. So we gave it to a typist called Chokkalingam here. He used to be the typist. And me and Shyam had to go for the DCM management training interview, so we gave the project to him. He looked at it and said, all is fine, sir, 2 years old. What should I do to costing? Shall I multiply everything by 1.1? It's a typist told us, okay? So we said, go ahead and do. And we gave it to a friend called Verghese. You know, he's a proper chemical engineer now, okay? So we gave it to him a binding, and went for the DCM management training interview, and came back for our Viva OC on campus here. Poor fellow in the binding, he had a cooling tower went in his project. In his Viva OC, they asked him, what is this doing here? He said, thanks to this guy. The joke didn't end there. Me and Shyam were in Calcutta. I was in Metal Box, he was in TTK. I get a letter redirected from my home in Chennai, saying to Mr. Mahalingam and Shyam Sundar, hereby enclose 750 rupees check for you, each of you. Adjust the best chemical engineering project for the year 1985.
I never saw the check.
I got the project from Chennai.
Thank you. if I have to paraphrase what you have said, is that even if one doesn't know like what one should do, it is good to spend some time and understand what one should not do or what one is not comfortable with. That will give some clarity.
Yeah, kind of. It's a process of, it's very easy to say this after the fact, but I've, it's one of the things that people don't do very often because I think it's not easy to do. And again, it's like a bhashan coming from somebody who's, spent 25 years in corporate life or in entrepreneurship. But, I cannot underestimate or underemphasize the importance of knowing yourself. Introspection doesn't mean that you sit under a tree and meditate, but, what moves you the most? As Mali was saying, what do you like to do? If you define yourself clearly to your own mind, decisions become much easier in terms of what you want to do in life. Supposing you find that you want to work in the NGO space, and that's what. Okay, I'll give you an anecdote. This is about a couple of days ago. In Mahindra's we have a GMC Kada, which is like the TA, the TAS in Mahindra comes here. Some of you might already be part of the G. I know Vinayak is. So this is a guy who had passed out of IIM Calcutta in 2012, and GMCs have a rotation. Every year they do new projects. So I'm the head of one of the agribusiness verticals. So he came and sat down with me, and I was interviewing him. He had expressed desire to work in a role in my organization. I was trying to quiz him as why do you want to do this, boss? I mean, you can go anywhere you want to. You can be in auto. You can be in defense. Mahindra is a global conglomerate. It's got various businesses. Many of them are more glamorous than agribusiness. So I got talking to him, and he, so his background is that he is a committed leftist. He's almost on the verge of being a communist. He's a Maoist sympathizer. This is his worldview. And therefore, for him, when I spoke to him, it came together as a story for me as this guy really wants to do what he wants to do. He was very passionate about, and so his hobbies, his interests, everything hung together as a coherent story. So that convinced me, A, that he can add value to my business, and B, that he'll also be very happy doing what he's doing. This guy hung together because he had a worldview which is very coherent. He thought about it. He knew who he was. He knew what he didn't want to do. And I'm very happy because he's going to be joining me next week from his current assignment, and I'm sure he's going to rock. And it's going to happen because he knows himself.
Other thing I want to add is, you need conviction in what you do. See, after you pass out on IIM, it's very tempting to chase big brands. Okay, it's very, very tempting to work for Unilever, Cadbury's, and a lot of people see my business is not glamorous at all. It's not as if the calling card which you carry is very important at that stage in life, even important even today. The fact is, people used to say, why do you do this for a living? I said, I'd rather sell cars for myself than sell chocolates for somebody else. So it's an important conviction that you're convinced. Not that it suits everybody, but if you're going to choose this path, you have to be convinced that's what you're doing. It's very fashionable to say, and very, very in a social circle, that you work for Hindustan Lever those days. I could never say that, but it didn't affect me so much because I was convinced that what I was doing is what I liked doing and I would do something out of it. Many years later, people called it vision, but I refused to call it because it was just because I loved it. I'm just saying that it's important to feel good about yourself intrinsically. Not necessarily, at that age it's much more difficult because validation, brand, everything is important, especially how to get married, which company you work for, those things were big factors in our times. So it did matter, but beyond that, if you're convinced that you're doing because you really enjoy what you're doing, ultimately I think things work out.
Thank you. Sir, I just want to go back on a point that you mentioned in the answer to the previous question, where you said you wanted to work for some time before you started the business. So in today's context, would you offer the same kind of advice to the people who are looking to start their own?
There are different ways to look at this. Okay. Now, in our times, Shyam would agree that 90% of our IIM batch or 85% of our IIM batch were fresh graduates. Okay, so we had no concept of what work was like. For us, the term exam was another exam which after our engineering exams. I think a lot of you come here with work experience. So to that extent, it's less important. I'm not saying it's not important. It is less important. But even today, it might be worthwhile if you have a domain in which you want to do business, work for 2-3 years, understand the domain a bit, and take a maybe more calculated gamble. But I can tell you just one thought on this. I go back to IIM Calcutta every year, and I was telling Shyam, sharing this with Shyam, that 20% of the batch want to be entrepreneurs there every year. 20% of the batch, and IMC has a seed fund, they give you installation, they let you go back to placement after 2 years. So the environment is much more enabling than before. Personally, I would like somebody to work for 2-3 years in a domain so that they have a fairer grip of it. But that should not stop people who want to try. That's my answer.
Okay, from what I briefly know about both of you is also that you have a very vibrant life outside work also. Like for example, you do trekking and running, you are participating in various kind of activities, you at the alumni chapter and part of various committees. So how important is life outside work, and how does one manage both?
No, I would say that, speaking for me personally, again, I was just telling Mali on the flight from Trichy. Originally, I was supposed to go back this evening to Mumbai and take the early morning flight back from Chennai to Mumbai, because for me, weekends are important, the time with family, time with the wife, it's very important. And so then, I decided now not to do that, because I'm meeting him after a while. We can spend some time in the evening chatting about life, which is fine. This is also relaxing for me. But getting this work-life balance thing is extremely critical. See, here's the thing. I've met so many people in corporate life who are unidimensional. I was told this story about a senior manager, a very senior director level person who is now retired and who's continuing to help his former company. He's about 67, 68 years old. He's done exceedingly well in his life, professional life. But somebody was telling me that, he was apparently chatting with us some time back, and he said something which really stuck in my mind. He said, he regrets it, he has neglected his family. Look at this, 67 years of age, reached the pinnacle of his career. Now he is moving off to the sunset. By the time he's 70, he'll move away from the directorship. He'll have a lot of time on his hands. What does he remember? You know what, I neglected my family. Isn't that sad? That's terrible. That's one aspect of it. Second aspect is people who are more well-rounded and who have more interests outside of work, I think they tend to give better at work too, because work is not all that they do. There's this wonderful line that was written by, I don't know who was the cricket writer. I don't know, it was a famous cricket writer from the West Indies, not Tony Cosia, it was much before that. The name slips me now, but he wrote a wonderful line. Somebody had criticized him. He was also, I think his name was Walcott, Theodore Walcott or Theo Walcott, some name like that. So somebody criticized him because he was also very passionate. He was from Trinidad, and he was very passionate about cricket. He wrote a critique of cricket, and some cricket writer, chided him on that, saying, "What the hell do you know about cricket? Yeah, how can you comment?" So this guy said, "What does he know of cricket? Who only cricket knows?" You get what that means? It's very true. If you have interests outside of work, your life is enriched, your work is enriched, and I think you contribute more in whatever that you do. That's my personal view. I've seen, and Mali and I are great examples. We probably spend more time outside classroom than we did inside the classroom. I think we have enjoyed life. We've enjoyed all the journeys we've done. We've done reasonably well in our respective spheres of activity. And honestly speaking, when I hire people, like this conversation I had a couple of days ago with this person who's looking for this job in my group, I spend a lot of time talking about what do they do in life, what kind of movies do you work. I ask this guy, what books do you read? And if somebody tells me I read self-help books, then I'll say either he's trying to impress me or the guy really doesn't know who he is. And so if somebody says, I read these kind of books, I also read a lot. So okay, if he says some author, I say, which book of his did you like? You get an insight into the guy's character and the way he thinks. So I think even the way prospective employers or prospective business partners look at you will change if they know that you have more depth to you than merely your subject or your work. It's extremely important.
For me, it's For me, it's a little easier because most of the other things I do are again to do with people. So whether it's the alumni association or the association's cultural association I do or other things I do, it's again people. For me, people at work and people at fun also. But the good thing is, I love doing it, as I told you right in the beginning, because I love interacting with people because it gives me a new perspective to my businesses also. And being in the services industry, to put it very bluntly, every handshake is an opportunity for me. So it's important for me to shake as many hands as I can. So it's an opportunity and fun. So how better can you get than we can mix work with pleasure, so to say. But that apart, that cold-bloodedness apart, you have to enjoy doing it, otherwise it can be emotionally draining. And you have to have a family which supports you to do that. Otherwise you have a problem, I can tell you. So it's important for that also. But as Shyam says, an alternate personality to your professional personality is critical in keeping you fresh at work also. It's very, very, very important. You can follow a hobby. For example, Shyam runs, I run, we work out. So all these things fresh in the mind. A workout, for example, at any stage in life keeps you fresh. Shyam runs the marathon, for example. So these things are important because you have to understand that all work actually makes you pretty dull. A lot of people, as he says, do very well, but you have to figure out what well means actually. Are you happy doing what you're doing? Are you stressed doing what you're doing? A lot of high performers can be very high stressed also. So you have to watch out. It can take a toll on your health, midlife deaths, early midlife deaths, all this are heard. You have enough stories of all that. So it's important to balance it so that you can enjoy a long, healthy, not only professional life, but personal life also. It's very, very important.
So I can give you a personal perspective on this. I was thinking as Mali was speaking. I've had, probably it's the generation we grew up in, we didn't have, I wouldn't say it's a distraction, but we really had to, meet, we had friends, we had to go out and play, etc. So you develop certain interests. So, general knowledge was my thing. I used to be a very literary kind of person, so I would be, writing a lot, reading a lot. General knowledge was my stuff. So I enjoyed doing it. There was a time in my life when I thought that I actually wasted a lot of my time, attending quizzes, even though I did reasonably well at them. I used to think, of what use is it? It's a complete waste. It won't help me in my career. I'll tell you this now. Be it my, interest in quizzing or general knowledge, which continues to this day, be it my outdoor orientation. I've done a bit of rock climbing, mountaineering. I like the outdoors. I used to do long distance running till recently, marathons, etc. I like travel. I've traveled to, dozens of countries on holiday. So here's the thing that I realized. Because of the fact that, people like Mali, he's very well-read too, and he and I used to do quizzing together very often. Because we are so well-read, we have a perspective on life, we have certain knowledge. Today when I sit around at work, and I've noticed this very often, when we're discussing work or having a general discussion, very often I realize that the perspective that I have, compared to most other people around the table, is different and in some ways unique. Okay? If you're a competitive person, let me tell you, this also gives you a competitive advantage at work. So this is just one example. So the more wide-ranging your hobbies are and the more wide-ranging your interests are, and you allow your mind to go in different directions, it actually makes you more competent and competitive. And if you're the kind of guy or a girl who wants to climb up the greasy pole, it helps you more if you have a more widespread personality than if you're a monomaniac.
Put it simply, the diverse interests, great conversation openers during an interview, I can tell you. The more you do, for example, I used to play table tennis for the university here, and so these things, when they look at a resume, they are great conversation openers, and you can do a connect.
The next thing I want to ask is that you talked about your experience and you made out as if you were at the right place at the right time. Yes, that was part of it, but there must have been opportunities that you must have missed, or there must have been opportunities that you chased and had some difficulty in overcoming. Similarly, in your case, sir, you must have had some kind of difficulties as part of your professional journey. So if you could share some of the anecdotes from those kind of difficult or situations, or where there is something like failures that we can learn from. Is it?
I can talk long on that. Enough failures, don't worry. So, see, it's like this. Again, this is something me and Shyam were discussing. It's coincidental that many of the things you're asking is something we discussed on the way here. More dangerous than failure is success, believe me. Because success goes to your head. See, what happens when you're successful in many things you try is, it happens to business my size, it happens to large corporates, whether it's the big corporates of India, their diversifications always don't work. But they do it because they can afford to do it. They do it because they want many businessmen start new ventures, not because it makes great business sense, but they want a new toy basically. So they want a new toy, they want to try it, that's the flavor. There are enough companies in India who entered retail and not made a single paisa till now. Many companies who entered telecom who didn't make money. So, see, what happens is, when you move away from focusing on your core business, for example, you take international companies, If you, for example, whether it's Google or Microsoft who are very big in their ventures, in social media they've not got anything. So I've tried stuff like that, for example. For example, even today we run a franchise called Holiday World for the Mahindras in Chennai. We have run it for 8 years now. It's not made great money. But why we've not dropped it is because two reasons. I can afford to run it without making too much money. One, that's the wrong way to do business. And if my ego doesn't permit me to accept failure, again, wrong way to do business. The reason I started it, because we have a huge customer base and people believe, see, I'll tell you my diversification which didn't work. We were one of the biggest distributors of financial services in the country, the largest in South India. Customer base of more than 200, 300,000 customers. All that is fine. We diversified, two diversification didn't work. We got into the distribution of life insurance. Okay. Didn't work. Reasons being, see, we distributed loans and distribute loans. We realized much after that when you go to customers to give money, they're very willing to give you, talk to you. When you ask them for money, it's a totally different equation. In insurance, you ask them for money. And the problem with such kind of multiple relationships with the same customers, some of these customers very well known to me privately, personally tell me, boss, you do so many things. One business can I give to another friend of mine. So there's fatigue also in that sense of the word. So our life insurance distribution business, we tried it twice. We were the first corporate agency for Birla Sun Life in the country. Didn't work. We were the first corporate agency for Aegon Religare. Didn't work. Reasons being that we didn't realize that giving money was different from taking money. And more importantly, the dynamics of the industry was that to hold on to people is very difficult in a corporate agency kind of setup because people tend to work with insurance companies directly. Similarly, the Club Mahindra experience, we thought we could cross-sell to our base. We made mistakes. There have been mistakes which were more out of arrogance and overconfidence, and you think you can get away. But it's important to correct course and move back.
Yeah, I mean, I think mistakes that happen in business or when you're an entrepreneur are probably more stark and more easily described than mistakes or failures. Not mistakes, I wouldn't call it mistakes, but failures in corporate. Because in corporate, you have a cushion on which both you and your business can fall back on. So failures don't tend to be such life-defining events. But I can tell you, you can go wrong. I have gone wrong in my career in terms of sometimes, selecting the wrong strategy. For instance, just recently, I was looking out for a merger and acquisition opportunity in the seed space, and we spent a lot of time going after targets, and we examined about 10 or 12 companies, and I did a due diligence on 3 or 4 of these companies. And ultimately, for one reason or the other, none of these acquisitions came through. In fact, there was one company I was on the verge of acquiring, but during the due diligence phase, I found that the R&D capabilities of this company was not what it was cranked up to be. Fortunately, pulled the plug on this right at the last moment. But we've literally spent crores of rupees doing all this work and engaging the top institutional bankers and work. So it didn't really go down very well with the company and with the group with which I worked. Okay, be as confident as you are today, you will fail. There'll be several occasions you will fail. There'll be several stretches of periods of time, 5-6 years, where nothing you do will succeed, either in business or in work or on corporate life. If you are able to move past this and develop the resilience to be able to learn and move on, that's what will make you succeed rather than fail. And that is what I've learned through all the failures that I've been through. It's extremely important for us. And there again, I tied back to the concept of introspection, because if we don't learn the right lessons from the failures, then really those failures would have been in vain.
Thank you. Sir, I have one last question before I throw the floor open for questions. You have said that you would like to be surrounded by people in terms of employees who bring intellectual energy, emotional energy, and physical energy. Can you explain to us in somewhat detail about each one of them? What do you mean by emotional energy? Oh,
that's pretty easily done. And it's actually very simple. I've distilled whatever I've learned or whatever I do into this very simple. What do I look? See, as it's well, let me step back a little bit. Right from day one, whether you're in business for yourself or you're working in a company, you only get work done through other people. When you start your career, you are the doer, right? So as a management trainee with Hindustan Lever, I was out on the streets, selling the soaps and detergents. In TTK, I was out selling condoms. So I was the doer. I was the last guy in the chain. But even then, I had to work with other people, right? You had to work with the redistribution stockist to ensure that he took the stocks and you met your sales target. You had to work with the retailer for him to be able to stock your stuff. And you move up the value chain, you have to get more and more work done through people, right? And that's when you realize, and Mali also pointed out in his opening remarks that the most essential skill that we have to learn is how to manage people, whether you're working for them, or whether you're working with them, or whether they're working for you. Without that, you're nothing. Especially in my position, when you go, for 10, 15 years, when you're all leading large teams or businesses, you'll have 1,500, 200, 300, no matter what the size of the organization, you'll have people working with you. You're only as good as they are, okay? So that was a long preamble. What I'm trying to say here is that I spend a lot of time, I spend all my time getting work done through people, right? Do very little of it myself. So it's extremely important for me to select for the right attributes and abilities. This again is a very personal thing, but I have distilled it down to 3 things. I can work with people, I look for people who have 3 kinds of energy: intellectual energy, physical energy, and emotional energy. What do I mean by that? Intellectual energy is, it's quite clear. People who are bright. When I say bright, I don't mean people who have got, 10 on 10 CGPs or 9.6 on 10 CGPs. That's not what I meant. When I say bright, it's a spark that you see in a person. How communicative is he or she? How does he or she deal with ideas? How much of an out-of-a-box thinker is this person? How can he debate with you? That when you speak to a person, you can get a sense of that intellectual engagement. How strong is the mind? How quick is the mind? That's one aspect of it, because it's very important. Especially in corporate life where I am, it's extremely important, because you do deal with strategies, you do deal with systems and processes, and these are important, and you can't wish them away. Okay, and second aspect is obviously the easily understood physical energy. If there's a guy who's very laid back, doesn't want to travel, doesn't speak with energy, not only is this person not going to end up doing much, but he or she will also drag the rest of the team down with him. So physical energy is important. The ability to run around, ability to be hyperactive, ability to work long hours if necessary, that's physical energy. But the most important aspect is emotional energy. I think Mali called it commitment, right? You said something like that? No, it's, attitude is the passion. The word he used was passion, okay? That's emotional energy for me. That sense of being, this guy whom I interviewed a couple of days ago, I mean, he was, it was almost bursting out of him. I want to do this. And he said, I wanted to work for an NGO, but then I decided against it. Mahindra is a great place to work. I want to be in the agri space. I could sense it. So he was jumping up and down. He was almost bursting. He had the physical energy. He was intellectually very sharp, but he had the emotional energy, the passion to do the work. And really, that's all that you need: the emotional energy, the intellectual energy, the physical energy. And as I said, I like to work with people who are young at heart. I was mentioning to Mali a little while ago that in the entire, almost all through the group, I've got the youngest team. Deliberately so, because I think young people give all these 3 kinds of energies which are required for us to be successful. That's basically what I look
Give you
at.
a short story on this. The year 1992, we had just started a new brand of distribution for Citibank called Autoline, where we had started a branded loan distribution outlet for Citibank called Autoline. We later started something called Shelters for their home loan piece, and we had advertised in the Hindu for candidates, and there's this boy from Nagarkoil. He was an MA literature boy who came and met me. See, starting salaries for graduates, my starting salary, to give you some perspective, after IIM with Metal Box, was a take home of 2,180 rupees. I still preserve the pay slip. Okay, so the 80s and 90s were very different. Okay, so in 1992, our starting salary was 2,000 rupees for this graduate from Nagarkoil. So during the interview, I asked him, what's your ambition in life? He had a huge spark in his eye and was very bright and into, slightly plump kind of guy, but he said, I don't know whether he said it to impress me, obviously he did, and he said to work for T.S. Mahalingam. I fell off the chair. I said, you must be joking, we're just starting this business. But that got me. So we hired him, because I thought at least this guy is passionate about what he wants. And we hired him to sell. Citibank had a product of selling loans to doctors. So his style of functioning was this. What I mean by attitude is, he never used to cold call. Over a period, he got to know doctors, and in this, he used to open a diary every day, and in the diary, he had at least 7 or 8 names of doctors who were either celebrating their birthdays or anniversaries or children's birthdays. All he used to do was pick up the phone and say either happy anniversary, happy birthday, or happy birthday to your child. So he never, most doctors whom used to sell products to loans to used to call him, instead of him calling them when he wanted business. They called him when they wanted to give him business. So that was the relationship he shared. To take the story longer, he worked with me for 10 years. He had many offers. I held him back. Then I got him a job at City Financial. Then he went to Green Lakes. Then I got him a job at Citibank in the NRI business. You won't believe it, for 4 years running, he was the top 5 performing wealth managers in the world for Citigroup. And he used to make bonus of $250,000 every year. He moved to HSBC on 1st of February 3rd, he called me that he had moved back to the Citigroup Private Bank at a salary of £200,000 with a sign-on bonus of £100,000. This boy from Nagarkoil, no MBA, nothing. Sheer passion for his job, attitude. That's what I saw in him 25 years back. That's what Citigroup Private Wealth saw him in last week. So the point I'm making is the passion and attitude which Shams talk about, they make a huge difference. And his colleagues are all MBAs from the leading US universities or Indian universities. And this guy is nothing but an MA literature from Nagarkoil, studied all his life in Nagarkoil. If you think we design the circumstances, we don't. But if you think we didn't grab the circumstances, we did. That's what I said. I never said we didn't work hard. Tell me about it. I can tell you a lot of stories on that. No, we worked very hard. I can tell you nothing comes easy. We seized opportunities. We are smart about it. Okay. I keep telling people in India to survive in business, at least in the business I do, you need a stomach more than a head. You need to survive in Indian business, and the environment is not so easy. The point is, but you can still make it.
So what I kind of heard from what you said was, it's not entirely free will. At the same time, it's not entirely kind of destiny. It's somewhere like things happen, and how you react and respond and react to the situations.
Aware of what's happening. As Sham said, you have to be aware of yourself. So that's the key to success. I have this friend of mine who is also from NIT, Satya Prabhakar, who started a company called Suleka.com. Okay. It's a very successfully run company. He's based out of Chennai. I think he's going to come here sometime now. So he has a theory to this. Okay. Unlike me, who at least, if not a big business, had a small family business to go fall back on. And while capital was important, it was not as important. Today's entrepreneurship, a lot of times, especially for professionals, about two kinds of capital. You bring the idea and intellectual capital, and there are people who bring in financial capital. So there are enough opportunities for you to get funded without risking your money. Entrepreneurship is not about for people who fear things. Okay. You have to be fearless. I'm not saying to be reckless, but you have to put that aside and say, I am going to do this because I think there's a huge opportunity because of the chance I take. You have to start entrepreneurship without fear, then it's not entrepreneurship.
The thing is, I've known people who have set their hearts on only a company or only a particular kind of a job or a role, which constricts their choices. And if you are going to go into this season with that kind of a mindset, I think you're setting yourself up for a disappointment. However, if you've also worked out, it worked very well for us, I think, and I've seen it work a lot even later on when people like the GMC, Carter and Mahindra, they come and they don't get the particular role of their choice. You have fallback options, which say, okay, I've got prioritized, this is my ideal dream job. If I don't get it, I get job number 2. At least if you prioritize beforehand what kind of roles and what kind of companies you have, which you may or may not get, it helps.
I just wanted to ask you, how much do you feel it was because of your success was because of the passion you had inside you, or was it because the shaping because of your education, or the third is the experience you had over the course of your journey?
Simple question, it's a combination of both. It's never one thing. IIM Tag helped to get me business with many institutions, yes. In that sense, education, not what I learned, but the degree I earned, in that sense of the word. Okay. Passion, obviously, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to be passionate and believe in what you do. Otherwise, you can never succeed in entrepreneurship because it's your baby all the way. Even in a job, you can never succeed because if you don't show passion, it'll never reflect in your work. I think there is no one single factor anybody can attribute to success or decisions, basically. It's a combination and circumstances, yeah. But you take the right decision and go with it and keep at it so that you make it work. That's the most important thing. You have to persevere.
The fact that, I passed out of an NIT, the fact that I got a degree from IIM Cal gave me a certain quote-unquote pedigree with the outside world. this opens doors for you. It's extremely important to realize that. Having an IIM tag or having an NIT and national and REC tag, it opens doors for you. So it gives you opportunities that, because rightly or wrongly, it marks you out as a person who's got a certain caliber, because these places are not easy to get into. And with each passing year, it becomes more and more difficult to get in. So the answer to the first part of your question is, was it because you're from IIM and REC that you were able to succeed in your corporate life? The answer is undoubtedly yes, but not necessarily for the reasons that you might imagine it to be. Not because I got a degree from here, I learned X, Y, and Z, therefore I became very good at what I do, not at all. It's just the fact that I got in rather than got out. You get what I mean? The fact that I got into IIM Cal, the fact that I got into REC Trichy, proved to the outside world, which are looking at certain metrics, that I had what it takes to come to these institutions just like you have. What is less important is what you go out with in terms of what your knowledge is, because that really, beyond the first couple of years in the job, doesn't really count. So did my IIM background help? Most certainly it did. It opened doors which were not open to others who did not have this kind of background. Let's be very clear about that. And that's something you should be confident about. Talk about passion. My switch from FMCG to Monsanto was partly led by that. I didn't know anything about agriculture. I just knew that I wanted to do something where I could make a difference. That was my passion. But when I got into agriculture, the first few months that I worked in Monsanto, started traveling outside the metros into all the villages of India, I actually felt a sense of liberation. I'm telling you this completely honestly. I felt great going to these small towns, going onto the farmer's field, watching cows and buffaloes graze, addressing farmer meetings. For me, for some reason, I felt, man, this is fantastic. It was away from the glamorous world of FMCG, shooting ad films, launching acts at, in India, doing the brand management for Pear soap. I somehow found that being in this milieu, see, Mali alluded earlier to why many of us in our batch didn't go abroad and settle down. The culture was important, the milieu was important. I think this is part of that in my case. I never left the world of agri after that. I've been, I was in Monsanto, in Mahindra, I'm setting up one of the agri verticals, new businesses, etc. That's where the passion piece comes in. I was lucky, I guess, that I got an opportunity to evaluate a job with Monsanto. If that had not happened, who knows, I might still have been in FMCG today, maybe doing equally well in my career. I might not have been very happy with what I was doing. The passion might have been missing. I might not have had a good ride, but I've had a good ride because I've moved into Monsanto and I've remained in agri ever since. That's where the passion comes in. So in my case, in my career, it's clearly been a case of my background, which has also played a role. Luck, in the sense that the opportunity from Monsanto came in at the right time. Choice, I made the choice consciously to move into Monsanto, let's see how it goes. And the passion that I found that I developed for agriculture and the agribusiness, which has stood me in good stead. So when I look at it from that perspective, it's actually a great question to answer, because I'm thinking aloud as I speak to you. And actually these three things have come together very well for me. And for that, I guess I should be grateful for that. If you go looking for opportunities to switch jobs, I think you're already in dangerous waters. But if jobs come to you or opportunities come, don't look at it as a job. If an opportunity comes to you, and I use the word deliberately, a job is a job, an opportunity is something else. It's not just semantics. An opportunity comes by your way, and you examine it, and if you're not actively in lookout mode, that's a different ballgame. Because then you need to analyze what it is you want to do in your next phase of your career, and then you plan it out accordingly. I keep coming back to the one game-changing move for me personally that made when I moved from FMCG into agri. I wasn't looking for a job. I was getting bored, but I wasn't desperate. I want to move from here. So if tomorrow, if I'd got a job with Procter & Gamble or Nestle, to one level higher, I may have said, no, why would I want to leave us to go into Nestle or to Cadbury's? Monsanto. It was a long courtship. It was a 3-month conversation before even the first interview happened. So you examine yourself and see if you're moving to the other job or a company or an opportunity for the right reasons. I think it should work out well.
Every time I've been doing this in Calcutta for the last 7 years, every time I've gone, I can tell you, we've learned more than we've given Gyana, but I can tell you it's a compliment to all of you, because I think I see some very sharp minds, and every time I meet some of you, hear your questions, it resets my clock in terms of the way I look at my business. Thank you again.
Yeah, and I would add to that. I think I completely agree. I love interacting with young people. It gives me the illusion that I'm getting younger. We suck energy out of you guys. That Voldemort in the Harry Potter series. So it's been really invigorating, and I think I should thank you guys for having me, for having taken the trouble to invite me over. It's been a wonderful session. Thanks so much indeed for your time, and I really look forward to being back here with you wonderful guys once again sometime in the near future. Thank you.